This week, Nintendo shuts down the final Switch emulator Ryujinx, and the community is not happy. And neither am I. Then there's some controversy and some interesting stuff going on in the community that we want to talk about. Plus, we've got more details on the Valve and Arch collab, and it really highlights Valve's future plans for SteamOS. We'll discuss all of this and more today. That's right, it's time for Linux gaming news. So, Ryujinx is dead. At least that's clearly Nintendo's intention here. Ryujinx, for those unfamiliar, was the last remaining Nintendo Switch emulator capable of running commercial games, both legally obtained and otherwise. And yes, it's possible to play pirated copies of Switch games on emulator, but to say that one promotes the other is absurd. I think it's equally absurd to say that Nintendo promotes software piracy because they distribute emulation software themselves, be it through their NES or SNES classic consoles, or through NSO, or any of the other myriad ways that they've promoted emulation in the past. The thing is, they have recently abused the YouTube copyright system to attack a fellow YouTuber's livelihood, Russ over at Retro Game Core, and they've also taken down one of Russ's videos because he showed footage of a Switch game being emulated. But this week, their mafioso-style tactics have led them to what at least looks like bullying the lead developer of Ryujinx to not only quit developing the app, but also to remove the emulator from the internet. Quote, yesterday, GDK-chan was contacted by Nintendo and offered an agreement to stop working on the project, remove the organization and all its related assets he's in control of, and while waiting for confirmation on whether he would take this agreement, the organization has been removed. So I think it's safe to say what the outcome is. Rather than leave you all with only panic and speculation, I decided to write this short message to give some closure. So we don't actually know what this deal is. Could it be that Nintendo threatened to sue GDK-chan? Maybe they gave him a job, or maybe it was a cease and desist. We have no idea. All that we have at this point is speculation. Update just before this video went live. So the Ryujinx subreddit reports that Nintendo sent GDK a cease and desist, which is a legal threat. So yeah, it looks like Nintendo is ever the bully here. And I feel even better about what I'm saying next. Look, case after case and precedent after precedent have shown that emulation is not only legal, but Nintendo has no right, moral or otherwise, to a monopoly over the Switch platform, and yet they continue to assert like they do. The fact is, emulation is legal. Ryujinx, according to everything that we know today, was produced entirely above board. Nintendo has no right to try and stop us from emulating their games that we have obtained legally. And morally speaking, Nintendo is completely in the wrong here. Now, in his recent video about this very issue, my friend Bill over at NerdNest said that Nintendo is attacking the little guys because the likes of the devs over at Ryujinx or YouTubers, because Nintendo is lazy. Nintendo is being lazy here because they know that it would be much easier for them to bully YouTubers and FOSS developers to prevent them from doing completely legal things than it would be for them to track down pirates and sick their lawyers on each one of them. But the fact is, Nintendo wants people to pirate their games. Their behavior proves that to me, because then they can go to governments around the world and say, look, we've been fighting software piracy as much as we can. We've taken down Yuzu and Ryujinx, and we've taken on YouTubers who are promoting piracy by talking about emulation. But we really need stronger IP laws and more power to enforce our copyright before we'll be free of the software piracy scourge. And they'll likely get everything that they ask for. Nintendo is a malignant force in the world, and unfortunately, they make some of the best single-player games of all time. But here's the problem. Their anti-customer tactics, their backward stance towards intellectual property, and their open hostility towards free, open source, and entirely legal software means that I can never give Nintendo another dollar from my wallet. That's not to say that I will never play another Nintendo game again. After all, I have a huge collection of Nintendo games and consoles right over here. But I pledge that I will never buy another Nintendo game or console new. This isn't a boycott. This is an unending blackout. Now, if I ever get a Switch 2, it will be secondhand. And the same goes for any games that I might get for that system. Nintendo's behavior is entirely antithetical to everything that I stand for, and therefore, I can't in good conscience support them. Now, I don't begrudge anyone for wanting to play Nintendo games going forward, but if you agree with me, consider what I have to say about this. Now I gotta ask you a question. Did you know that I post 2 videos every week, Monday and Friday, here on this channel? And did you know that I've been making these videos for over a decade now? Yeah, last Saturday was my 10-year anniversary on YouTube. I made this video to commemorate the special occasion, and in it, I announced that I am no longer accepting sponsorships on the channel. So no more of this video is brought to you by. I'm not doing that anymore. That's going to result in a pretty substantial loss of income for me here, but I believe that it's the right thing to do. So if you believe in what I'm doing here, you can actually like this video and share it with your friends, get the message out, or if you can afford it, maybe pledge $1 or $2 over on my Patreon or my Ko-Fi campaign. It's all greatly appreciated. And now let's get back into it. So apparently there was some drama this week regarding Godot Engine, and it's too hot for YouTube, so I'm gonna reserve this story for my patrons. Speaking of, check it out here if you're interested, and there's going to be a link below as well. All right, so we now have news about the Arch Linux and Valve collab, and I feel like this is a really important story for us to touch on here, because there's a lot of assumptions and misinterpretations of what this Valve collab actually means. Now, I've seen several commenters who believe Valve's pushing some kind of Windows 11 style TPM requirement on Arch, which that's completely wrong. I really don't know how anyone gets from A to B on this subject. Maybe the use of secure enclave is throwing people off here. In reality, Arch maintainer Antas said, quote, basically, the way packages are currently built or /maintained still require a few manual interventions from package maintainers, triggering the build itself and signing the built packages afterwards. As of now, supporting multiple architectures would mean multiplying those manual steps by the number of supported /targeted architectures. With the current number of volunteer package maintainers maintaining them, Arch is not able to handle the extra amount of effort that it would imply. A central build service and a central secure signing enclave, the 2 projects concerned by the Valve sponsoring, would streamline the overall process by allowing automated build and signing for packages without requiring any manual steps /intervention from package maintainers anymore. And it will also allow to increase the security of the process as a side benefit. Only such a streamlined automated workflow would allow us to start working on multiple architectures without implying to multiply the current amount of required effort. In other words, those projects are prerequisites to start working on multiple architecture support in a clean and sane way, which is an end goal shared by both Arch and Valve. Now, given the fact that we've seen hints of ARM support for not only Proton, but also SteamOS in the pipeline, and we now have Antas clarifying that this initiative is aimed at adding multi-Arch support for Arch Linux, which, mind you, is the basis for SteamOS, it's pretty clear that Valve is gearing up for the release of some ARM-based hardware. You'll love to see it. Now, is this the rumored Valve headset Deckard that people have been talking about? Most likely, yes. But there's also some hints that it might be something else, and I made a video about that here. You can check it out. Finally, let's talk about the Steam Deck beta that just hit. There's a bunch of interesting stuff here I'm really excited to talk about. The biggest changes are all regarding game recording. Quote, added video previews to the background recording items in the media manager when hovering them with a mouse or focusing them in big picture mode. Added video previews to the background recording items in the app details page screenshot section when hovering them with a mouse or focusing them in big picture mode. Added a setting to record microphone input alongside audio gameplay. In per game settings, added the ability to record a specified game indefinitely with no specified time limit. And they integrated the list of games where recording is disabled into the per game settings. Now, overall, I'm super excited for the final release of game recording, but I'd like to know what you think about that. Leave me a comment and let me know. I think that's going to be all the news that I wanted to cover this week. If you missed it, I did a special edition of gaming news that you can watch over here. That was on Monday, and there's some pretty banger stuff in there. And I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. Let me know your thoughts on any of the stories we talked about below. I read every comment still to this day. I've been doing this for 10 years, and reading the comments is one of my favorite things to do. That's going to do it for now, though. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.